I froze when I felt his eyes on me. Not admiration. Not curiosity. Disbelief. The kind that makes the air heavy and your skin burn. I didn't need to turn around to know it was him. My ex-husband. Standing there, weight frozen in his hands, staring at the woman he thought he had destroyed. And in that moment, the only thing I could think was how little he actually knew about me, and how dangerous that ignorance was about to become. I caught my reflection in the mirror before I let myself look at him. Stronger shoulders. A sharper waist. Confidence written in every line of my posture. This wasn't revenge. Not yet. This was something deeper. Something that had been growing quietly since the day I signed those divorce papers and walked away with nothing but a suitcase and a dark past I hadn't even begun to understand. I turned my head slowly, letting my eyes meet his. His mouth opened slightly, then closed. He looked like he was seeing a ghost. Or worse, a mistake coming back to haunt him. I almost smiled. Almost. But then the memory hit me, hard enough to tighten my chest, and the gym lights blurred for a second. Because this wasn't just about looking good. It was about everything he took from me. Everything he hid. And the hidden truth that had followed me into this room, whether I was ready or not. When we first met, I was invisible. That's the word that fits best. I was the woman people overlooked, spoke over, underestimated. He noticed me because of that. Or at least, that's what I thought back then. He made me feel chosen. Safe. Like I'd finally been seen. I didn't realize that what he really loved was how easy it was to shape me, to mold me into someone smaller than himself. Our marriage didn't break all at once. It cracked slowly. Quietly. Like something rotting behind a wall. I'd hear his phone buzz late at night and he'd turn the screen away. He'd start fights over nothing, then accuse me of being too sensitive when I cried. And the worst part was how normal it all felt. How I learned to doubt my own instincts. The day I discovered the betrayal wasn't dramatic. No screaming. No confrontation. Just a receipt left in his jacket pocket. A gym membership. Not this one. Another. Across town. Somewhere he claimed he never went. That was my first shocking discovery. The first thread I pulled, not knowing how much it would unravel. I told myself it didn't matter. That men lie sometimes. That marriage meant forgiveness. But family secrets have a way of surfacing whether you invite them or not. And once they do, they don't care how fragile you are. When I finally left him, he acted surprised. Hurt. Almost offended that I'd dare walk away. He said I'd never make it on my own. That no one would want me. That I'd come crawling back once reality hit. I believed him more than I want to admit. The first months alone were brutal. I barely recognized myself. I avoided mirrors. Avoided people. Avoided questions. But then something shifted. It started with anger, the quiet kind. The kind that doesn't explode but simmers. I signed up for this gym on a whim, not to change my body, but to survive my mind. At first, I hid in oversized clothes, sticking to the corners, terrified of being seen. But consistency does something powerful. Not just to muscles, but to memory. Each rep felt like reclaiming a piece of myself he had convinced me didn't exist. I didn't know he worked out here too. Or maybe a part of me did and just refused to admit it. Fate has a twisted sense of timing. And apparently, so did he. The weeks passed, and I felt eyes on me more often. Not just his. Strangers. But his stare was different. Heavy. Unsettled. Like he was trying to reconcile two versions of me in his head and failing at both. That should have been enough. A silent victory. But life doesn't stop at surface-level triumphs. One evening, as I was leaving, I heard my name. His voice. Softer than I remembered. Dangerous in its familiarity. I didn't respond at first. I wanted to keep walking, keep pretending he was just another stranger in my rear view. But he said it again, closer this time, and something in me snapped. He told me I looked different. Stronger. Happier. The irony almost made me laugh. He asked where I'd been hiding all this time. As if I hadn't been standing right in front of him for years, shrinking myself so he could feel tall. I gave him nothing. No smile. No explanation. I told him I had somewhere to be. That should have been the end of it. But betrayal has a way of circling back, wearing new faces, asking new questions. That night, I couldn't sleep. Not because of him, but because of the thought I couldn't shake. The realization that my transformation wasn't just physical. I had changed because I had been forced to confront a dark past I'd ignored for too long. And seeing him again reopened doors I'd barely managed to close. A few days later, I got a message from a number I didn't recognize. No name. Just a sentence that made my stomach drop. It referenced something only my ex-husband and I should have known. A detail from our marriage that I'd never shared with anyone. That was when the real fear set in. Not the kind that makes you run, but the kind that makes you look back and realize the story you thought you lived was missing entire chapters. That the forbidden relationship I suspected might have been only the surface of something far more calculated. I started paying attention. To patterns. To coincidences. To the way people reacted when I mentioned his name. There were pauses. Avoided eye contact. Half-finished sentences. And slowly, painfully, I began to understand that the man I married wasn't just unfaithful. He was hiding a truth that didn't belong to him alone. The gym became more than a place to train. It became a stage. A place where power shifted silently. Every time he saw me there, every time his confidence cracked just a little more, I felt the balance tipping. But I also felt something else. A warning. Because the stronger I became, the more his interest changed. It wasn't desire anymore. It was control trying to find a new way in. And I knew, deep down, that if I wasn't careful, I'd uncover a family secret that would change everything I thought I knew, not just about him, but about myself. And that was only the beginning. I tried to ignore the message at first. I told myself it was coincidence, paranoia fueled by old wounds. But the words replayed in my head every time I closed my eyes. A detail from our marriage that no outsider should know. A memory I had buried so deep I almost believed it belonged to another life. Someone was watching. Or worse, someone had always been closer than I realized. The next time I saw him at the gym, everything felt different. The air was thicker. His confidence was gone, replaced by something restless. He wasn't just looking at my body anymore. He was studying me. Measuring how much I remembered. How much I suspected. That was when I understood this wasn't about attraction. It was about fear. He approached me again, pretending it was casual. Asked how long I'd been coming here, as if he hadn't noticed me every single day. His voice cracked when he said my name. I could hear it. That tiny fracture. I answered politely, carefully. I had learned how dangerous honesty could be with him. As he talked, I noticed his hands shaking. Not much. Just enough. And suddenly, I remembered all the other times I'd ignored signs like that. The late nights. The unexplained trips. The way his family would go silent whenever I entered the room. I had married into a wall of silence and called it love. After the divorce, I cut contact with everyone connected to him. Or at least, I thought I did. That illusion shattered when I ran into his sister at the grocery store. She stared at me like she'd seen a ghost. Not anger. Not judgment. Guilt. Pure and unmistakable. She asked how I was doing, her voice too sweet, too rehearsed. Then she leaned in and whispered something that made my chest tighten. She told me I should be careful now that I was visible again. I asked her what that meant, but she just smiled and walked away, leaving me standing there with a basket full of things I no longer needed. That night, I finally replied to the anonymous message. Just one word. Who? The response came instantly. A location. A time. And a sentence that confirmed my worst fear. The truth about my marriage wasn't over. It had just been waiting. I didn't tell anyone where I was going. Old habits die hard. I arrived early, my heart racing, scanning every face. When the person finally sat across from me, I almost didn't recognize them. Someone from his family. Someone who had smiled at our wedding. Someone who had hugged me goodbye when I left. They didn't waste time. They told me my ex-husband's betrayal wasn't just personal. It was strategic. That our marriage had been convenient. That I had been chosen not because he loved me, but because of who I was connected to. My family. My past. A past I barely knew myself. I felt sick. They explained that there were financial secrets, hidden accounts, favors exchanged. A web of manipulation that ran deeper than any affair. And at the center of it all was me. Oblivious. Useful. Silent. I asked why they were telling me now. Their answer was simple. Because he was losing control. Because seeing me strong, confident, impossible to dismiss anymore, terrified him. And terrified people make mistakes. I left that meeting shaking, but something else was there too. Clarity. For the first time, the pieces fit together. The gaslighting. The constant undermining. The way he made sure I never felt capable on my own. It hadn't been insecurity. It had been preparation. From that day on, I stopped hiding. I walked into the gym like I owned the space. I met his eyes without flinching. And each time, I saw it. Panic. The realization that the woman he once controlled was now the one holding the missing pieces of his story. He tried to reach out more after that. Messages framed as concern. Apologies that never quite admitted anything. Invitations to talk. To clear the air. I ignored them all. Silence had become my weapon. But silence doesn't mean safety. One evening, I found my apartment door slightly open. Nothing stolen. Nothing obvious disturbed. Except a photo placed carefully on my table. A photo from my childhood. One I hadn't seen in decades. That was the moment fear turned into resolve. I knew then that running wouldn't save me. Only truth would. I started digging. Old documents. Conversations I'd dismissed. Memories I'd rewritten to survive. And with every discovery, the story I'd told myself collapsed further. The most painful realization wasn't his betrayal. It was how thoroughly I had been erased. How my voice had been quieted long before the marriage even began. Family secrets aren't born overnight. They're inherited. Passed down through silence and fear. When I confronted him, it wasn't dramatic. No shouting. No tears. Just facts. His face drained of color as I spoke. He knew I knew. And in that moment, he understood something irreversible. I wasn't afraid anymore. He begged. Not for forgiveness. For discretion. He told me I could destroy everything. His family. His future. He reminded me of who I used to be. Small. uncertain, dependent. He didn't realize that version of me was already gone. I walked away without promising anything. Because power isn't loud. It doesn't need to threaten. It just exists. Today, when I go to the gym, I still feel eyes on me. But they don't define me. They remind me. I rebuilt myself in the same place he lost control. I turned pain into strength, silence into awareness. Some truths are dangerous. Not because they hurt others, but because they free you. And once you're free, you can never unsee the patterns. Never unknow the manipulation. Never return to who you were before. If my story made you uncomfortable, that's not an accident. It means you felt it. And if you've ever sensed something was wrong but couldn't explain why, you're not alone. Stay here. Subscribe. Like this video. Share your thoughts in the comments. Because stories like mine are more common than we admit. And sometimes, hearing one is the first step toward reclaiming your own.